This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. We have a gentleman on here today that has done some amazing things in business, and he is absolutely helping shape the business world. Gary Garth is a serial entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Elevate.io, author of the 0 to 100 million sales blueprint book, and the Goals, Grit, and Greatness Planner, featured in Inc., Forbes, Success, and many other prominent publications. He has been a serial entrepreneur since 2002. Gary has started and successfully exited 6 companies, including large outbound sales call centers, radio advertising networks, and award-winning 8-figure digital marketing agency. Brother, you've been all over the map, crushing it in business. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. And again, you have such an interesting background. I know you're originally from Denmark and now you're living in Colombia and loving all of it in between. How does one start, in Denmark and go on this amazing entrepreneurial path? Because 6 companies, not a lot of people can say they've exited one, let alone 6 companies. Brother, tell me your story, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I kind of just stumbled into entrepreneurship at an early age, 19 to be specific. Out of sheer coincidence, like everybody else, I had this brilliant idea, right? And there was a lot of obstacles and a lot of failures associated with that. But at the end, we kind of like got a little bit of lucky, so to speak. And that's how I started my entrepreneurial journey. To give a little context, it was selling DVD. This is back before there was streaming service. There was a little round disc, and I was importing them from US to Denmark. There was like the release date of movies was way beyond prior to that in the US versus Denmark. So there was some, I was a first mover kind of, and I shook up a lot. We shook up a lot of things, myself and partners, and we ran it like amateurs. We made all the mistakes in the book, but we were fortunate that we had a good product with the right timing. So that's how we were lucky. And I think because of that little taste of success, so to speak, that just gave me appetite for more. And then I ventured into sales more, which sales and marketing has kind of been my trajectory, and ran some call centers for some larger companies, was partner in a radio station and ran the broadcast division for that, media sales, etc. And then how I ended up in Latin America, long story short, was that the Danish government had a program, still do, with third world countries that is like providing aid. It goes through Danish companies instead of giving it to governments. They want to make an impact in those countries. So if you in Denmark have a company that's quote unquote successful, I think the criteria was like 20 employees, X amount of revenue, X years of existence, and you're in certain industries, you could apply to get a $1 million investment subsidy in select countries. Like one of them was in Nicaragua, Central America, a great country. I spent almost 7 years there, but a third world country. So the approach is basically, we come there, we create jobs, we make an impact, social impact, we fuel the economy that way, and it worked really well. I was with that project 10 years before I sold my shares in that company, and we worked with Google, Microsoft, and then now I already had a taste for Latin America. I got a beautiful daughter. I was married there, and I couldn't really, go back to Denmark. Now I was committed here. So next up was Colombia, and that's where I'm sitting here today. I've been here 2 years now, and I love it every day. Started a series of different projects. The one I focus on the most is Elevate, and we work with the behavioral health industry, basically helping with everything from lead generation to systems, CRM implementation, and also admissions enablement, basically helping them sell. So like a 360-degree solution so that they can focus on running their business, and we basically fill it with customers, patients.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme, because you're all over the different sectors of business, but there's 2 things that seem to be really prominent. A, you have an ability to scale system-wise, is what I kind of reading your bio, looking at it, it's like, all right, that's pretty cool. 0 to 100 million. That's a big move. And then the other thing is your social impact. And again, with Elevate, I was reading a little bit about really helping that area where, like you said, behavioral
health.
Yes, thank you. Behavioral health. So it's not just making a profit. You're also helping, like you said, Nicaragua, and you're really helping society better itself. So talk to me a little bit about that, brother, because often I think we look at, the P&Ls and we're looking at the balance sheets, but the truth is, why not also make the world we're living in a little bit better?
Amen, brother. You're preaching to the choir. I would like to say, for context, as a little asterisk, I was not always this focused on impact and being purpose driven. In my early 20s, it was all about the money, baby. And I wanted to be significant. I wanted to have all the hot cars, the big house, and all the girls, and the spiel. I was really just looking to be significant at whatever cost. And so I did a lot of, call center outbound aggressive, kind of like even boiler room style. And I lived that life and learned a lot from it. And during my last project, even though we helped tremendously the country Nicaragua with all the job creation, and it was a success. We got companies like Google and Microsoft there for the first time. I just woke up one day, it was in 2019, and looked myself in the mirror, and I was making millions, but we had our portfolio was advertisers. We had like working with other marketing agencies and advertisers running the PPC campaigns, and the majority of our portfolio was insurance lawyers, and mortgage companies, loan companies, tech, stuff like that. And I was just like, how am I helping the world become a better place? I thought that, once I hit this milestone, then the finish line moves a little bit. Now I have to make that amount of money. I thought, then I'm going to be happy, right? And I just found out, like, wait a minute, and maybe it's an age thing. I was turning 40, and thoughts come into mind. Is this my legacy? Is this what I want to do? And I was like, no. I'm going to step out of this business. I'm going to take the money that I sell it for, and I'm going to only get involved in projects where there's demand, there's opportunity, I can make money on it, but at the same time, I want to help. I want to make an impact beyond just job creation, right? That's fantastic. There's got to be entrepreneurs, jobs got to be created, the economy's got to go around. But behavioral health, for me, it was a coincidence. My best friend simultaneously died from a drug overdoses. I had seen very dear friends, family close to me experiencing, mental health issues, addictions, and I started to see a pattern that almost the more successful you are, the more likely you have to have some sort of addiction, right? Because you got to cope with the stress, right? That it's very few that are great at meditation and yoga and doing everything else to cope with all that stress. I read once that there's a common known statistic that most companies fail, right? What is it, like 80% within year one, and 97 within, with the first 10 years. And the few percentage that even make it beyond $1 million in annual recurring revenue, 9 out of 10 of those CEOs typically have some sort of challenge, mental health or addiction-wise. So that blew my mind. It's like, wait a minute, it's not just me. I also felt like that. It was also not my friends. It was also the top executives at all these successful companies. And like everybody have some, skeleton in the closet in terms of like, this is not good. I'm not healthy in that sense. And then I started to see the statistics, right? Like this year alone, the opiate crisis, the opiate epidemic is killing more people than guns and car accidents combined, right? But it doesn't get any media attention. And then you add drug, alcohol, and everything else to the equation. I was like, this is just effing wrong. So I said, I'm going to take that money. I'm going to invest it into an addiction treatment center. That was back in 2020. I was going to be the CMO of the company and the partner for a luxury boutique rehab in the Dominican Republic. That was February 2020. Unfortunately, we all know what happened to the world. So basically, I sunk in some money. There was travel restrictions for a year, so I just burned a lot of money, but retrieved some of it. And it was a calling. It was probably the best thing that could have happened, because I was entering a new industry, a little bit cocky and like, hey, I've been successful, so I could just enter a new industry. Because of my prior experience and success, I can navigate that more effectively. Boy, did I learn like the marketing space, the way of operations, the competition. It's one of the most competitive industries that exist. I mean, top 3 are right up there with finance and insurance and stuff like that when it comes like cost per click on Google Ads, etc. So I would have been like probably slaughtered and burned all my money. So in hindsight, it was great because I saw, okay, let me instead see if I can take my experiences, my resources, and instead, go out and help the already existing addiction treatment centers in the market that, very often they're not at full capacity, full census, they call it. Like they're maybe running at 50%, which is mind blowing because there's, only 10% of the 23 million Americans that need treatment in some shape or form get it, right? So why is there a gap? That just blew my mind. And they say, okay, it's because they have a hard time positioning themselves effectively, acquiring customers at a profitable rate. So I said, aha, that's what I got to do. So we launched that, and because of my experience, doing marketing for, over 10,000 companies, I counted through my last project, and 300 million managed ad spend. You kind of see some patterns. So we can generate leads for a company all day, right? But if you don't have a system in place to make sure they don't fall through the cracks and they get contacted immediately, promptly, with X amount of touch points over a serious point of time, and you're measuring all the right metrics, you are up against the wall. You are entering a gunfight with a knife. At the same time, if you don't have the sales component to it so that your team is running smoothly, right? Common statistics in business is that 1 out of 3 sales reps hit the quota, 2 out of 3 fail. And the attrition rate is, horrendous compared to most other professions. So I was like, there's got to be, okay, how can we create a solution that's 360 degrees so we help to generate leads, implement the systems, and also, admit those prospective patients. That's a way that I can help close the gap and help the 23 million Americans that are in need of treatment. So that's why I'm doing it, and I'm loving it every day. I'm not making a lot of money compared to previously. I'm working around the clock, but I feel a sense of purpose, right? I know I listen to the calls, I see the reviews. Hey, this company changed my life, and I like to believe that if we were not part of the equation, that recovery would have never happened.
Yeah, brother. I mean, look, there's nothing better than feeling fulfilled. You've made a lot of money, and that you obviously will again. One of the things that I want to talk about that I think is really interesting, and I think this is in the book, 0 to 100 million, begin with the end in mind, because when you're starting to build, obviously when you exited 6 companies, I'm guessing at some point you knew, I'm going to have an exit strategy. I'm going to have an exit strategy. I don't talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that actually have that strategy. They don't go in with the end in mind. In fact, we're just going to go every single day and we're going to grind it out and we're going to figure it out. And it's all hands on deck, putting out fires left and right. When you say starting with the end in mind, talk to me about that, brother, because that sounds like you're reverse engineering down to like, all right, I know where I'm going, and it's very strategic to get there.
Amen. I mean, that's with everything, right? It applies for everything. So your goal setting, I mean, your company launch, who you hire, it's really that start with the end in mind, envision where do you want to be, and is this the right steps we want to take in place? Just as an asterisk, I've started like 25 plus companies, so it's not like I'm like the launch and exit. I've had 75%, 80% failures and big ideas, and burned a lot of money too. So I had a few good ones, but the failure rate is also high. I've come to learn that it's, the trajectory for whatever you're going to do in life, whatever your passion is, whatever your purpose is, whatever company you launch, if you're not, if you don't see or say, okay, this is going to be me grinding for 10 years. Am I really up for it? Am I motivated? Because adversity is going to come, right? It is just part of the equation. And if you're not focused on that end goal constantly, and what that is, and how that's going to impact or influence your life or give you a stepping stone to the next, then you're not going to be able to push through it. I mean, that's why the failure rate is so freaking hard, right? So freaking high. So for my end, I learned, okay, if I want to go for an exit, for instance, first and foremost, I know it's going to take a lot of years. Unless you're like the next Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and you're lucky, which they also took a lot of time, by the way, then there's no overnight success. So am I up for it? Am I motivated? Is this the right people I want to work with? What should our values be? What's the end objective? And then start, reverse engineering that, calculating backwards. There's certain things that are inevitable, right? You want to get your customer acquisition right. You want to get your customer satisfaction on point. You want to have SOPs, processes, systems for everything. You basically want to be able to hand over a manual to whoever buys it and say, I am, not relevant in the equation. I'm great. I can influence, but this is a ship that is the train. It's just moving with or without me. That's kind of like some of the things. For me, I actually don't think about an exit when I launch a business necessarily. I'm not doing that with here. It's more like, okay, could I see myself doing this for a sustained period of time? Would I feel good about it? Or is it just to get a paycheck? That's the big question. And then you start, all these sub questions keep coming up. So I tell this all the time, like whether it's an employee that has a career trajectory they want to take, or ambition of buying a house, and they come to me, hey, I want to earn more, so forth. It's like, okay, begin with that, and okay, now we know what you want. Now we can start creating a career path for you, or make the necessary initiatives, a plan that can support that. So whether it's goal setting, individual, company, it's always a healthy exercise, in my opinion, to start with the end in mind.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fact that, hey, look, man, I've started 25, so I have a failure rate of 75%, whatever the numbers is, because that's the truth is, look, you're gonna fall on your face. It's not a matter of if, it's when it happens. Do you get back up? And we've heard that. But I notice in your second book, the planner, you mentioned the word grit. Now, I have a whole training that I do that part of it is grit. If you want to succeed at anything, look, man, you're gonna have to have. What does that word mean to you, brother? Because it's a really important word in my world. It's something that I think people can learn to become grittier, it's okay that I bloodied my nose and it's going to get bloody again, but you know what? It didn't kill me. Get back up. What does the word mean to you, brother? Because it's something that I talk about often.
Yeah. Goals and greatness don't come without the grit. That's the most important element of those three words, right? It's perseverance. It's hard work beats talent. It's that, one thing you can control is your grit, it's your attitude, it's how you approach it, it's how you get up, it's the effort you put into it. Because that at the end of the day is what's going to determine whether you become successful or not. You can have failures, you can be bad at something, but going away from that, experience and learning from it, that's actually great. Like one of my favorite, I really like to read a lot of books. And for instance, like in Principles for Ray Dalio, he has this whole cycle, and it's like, doesn't matter if you fail, it's actually good. It's a learning. You're going to use that for your next scenario, so that you put on a smile, you put your game face on again, and say, now I know what that blind spot over there, I know what to look out for here. Let me take a new approach to it. And that is grit, right? It's all the combined efforts. It's about getting up early in the morning if needed. It's doing whatever it takes. It's going that extra mile. It's having the right attitude. It's being, relentless about pushing through. And that is, for me, grit. The big point about grit is that it's hard to, pull out of your pocket and deliver on every day, unless it's tied up with your why and your purpose. So that's why, for me, the goals element is important, right? Which should be driven from your why and your purpose. Establish the goals accordingly, prioritize those goals. Then you apply the grit because you're motivated on all accounts, and then you get a greatness.
Let's get into goals for a second, brother, because one of the things everybody's heard, do your goals. Everybody knows that. But my question would be, how often are you checking in on these goals? Like, how frequently are you looking at them? Maybe you're changing them, maybe you're increasing them. How often are you really looking at them to say, look, I'm on pace or I'm way off? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you with your goals?
Yeah. So I always like to tell people, like, for recently I did a seminar. We were selling these products in a new book chain here in Colombia, and it was a lot of expats, entrepreneurs. And I was like, listen, everybody thinks that, hey, you're doing this, and hey, you created the planner, and hey, I've entered all coaching programs that practically exist. I'm a big fan of coaching and always had a coach. So it's like, I'm not perfect in any means, just to set the record. But if I strive for perfection and go for these basic processes, at least I do it 80% of the time, and that helps me a lot. So ideally, what I preach, what I try to do is every day I'll try to look at my goals to make sure that when I'm doing my daily planning in the planner and according to my weekly schedule and the quarterly targets, just get a quick refresher, because I put it up like, here's your goals, here's the purpose, why am I doing this, what's the reason behind the madness, and then start breaking the goals. So a quick glimpse of that helps a lot, at least at a weekly level. I try to do it daily, I fail at it, but every week I have a kind of like a process to, okay, let me flip back to the first pages and look at those goals. Then as fluffy as it may sound, I believe in vision boards. I believe in manifestation. And for me, so I have my vision board that out there. I get my graphic designer to help me nowadays. I don't sit there and do them myself, but I put it in the fridge. And I look at it every time. I shit, yeah, no, I want to get to that. That's why today is tough and I feel tired, and I could reschedule that. I'm the boss. I mean, I say, no, push through, right? If you cancel, if you push it, if you don't push through, it's a day lost towards getting towards that objective. And that it helps a lot by being reminded. So yeah, that's the little routines that help me a lot.
That's cool, man. If I were to go back, man, I'm this young Danish kid back growing up in Europe, and they look at Gary and they're like, hey man, this guy is going to absolutely crush it in business. Is that what everybody was looking at? They're like, man, this kid's just got it. He's got this grit, determination, hard work ethic. What did that look like, brother? Were you like destined for success, or did you kind of figure it out along the way? Like, ooh, I got a glimpse of some success, I want more of it. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, no. I think nobody destined me to success. Growing up, single mom. I mean, it's not nothing in Denmark is ghetto, to put it into context, but we live probably the poorest area that exists in Denmark. So we didn't have a lot of money, and basic public school and all that. And I guess what I had going for me is that, and I actually have this in my book. It's more related to whether you hire, for instance, sales representatives. For me, I've hired over 1,000 reps in my career, and you again see patterns. And very often, whether it's entrepreneur, but I'm trying to determine the criteria. You look at certain things, why they're destined. For me, it's about attitude and attributes. That's a big thing when I'm hiring for, skills, experience, you can learn that. It's the attitude and attributes. For instance, in my book, I have okay, here's 20 attributes to look for. Instead of looking for everything else, try to build up a system, a process, a framework that you can hire people and they can learn it. Because if they got the right attitude and attributes, they will come to success with the right mentoring and coaching. So the 20 attributes, and I think that applies very much also to entrepreneurship, is, for instance, are you competitive? Are you disciplined? Have you been able to, when passionate about something, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're passionate about swimming or you're collecting something, are you going all in? Are you detail-oriented? Are you just obsessed with getting something? If you have some of those attributes, if you're hungry, for instance, like in my case, I was I don't want to be here. I'm sick or tired of playing basketball, having the oldest sneakers on my feet, get teased for this and that. I'm going to make money when I get big. I'm going to get to the NBA, whatever my dreams was like that. That kind of hunger goes a long way, because then you're willing to get, go through the tough stuff when it happens. And I think I had that appetite for success, to be significant, to be hungry, to prove myself. And I think so that's kind of then I got lucky, and then that just amplified. And then I started to see that, I was fortunate to hire my first coach when I was some early 20s, a coincidence, because the guy, I had a period where I was working as a sales manager for this telemarketing company, and I found out, holy shit, I'm good at getting my point across and convincing people. So the owner of that company, he was big into NLP and Tony Robbins, right? So I caught on to that at the early stage, right? Oh shit, all this about programming your brain, started getting coaching and determined. And then I started reading all books I could get my hand on, personal development, biographies, stuff like that. And that's how you get inspired and get influenced to say, okay, what do I need to do to move forward, right?
Yeah, no, obviously, when you're looking at not just the resume, you're looking at the heart of the person. What are they bringing to the table? And I 100% agree with that. I'm curious in your leadership experience, because again, you've led companies in Europe, North America, now South America, and obviously the cultures are all so different, but you've succeeded business-wise So is there a lot of adapting that you needed to do as a leader in each environment? Or was there really like this blueprint, this game plan that, hey, it worked in Denmark, it worked in Florida, it works in Nicaragua, it works in Colombia? I mean, we're talking vastly different cultures, yet you've seen success in each environment. How has your leadership has it had to change, brother? Or you just, this is who Gary is, and man, we're gonna make it happen no matter where we're at?
Yeah, fantastic question. Fantastic question. It's a little bit like I put in my book on a chapter about outsourcing. Whether you're expanding into new market or you're outsourcing work and so forth, you're gonna be. It's a different country, different traditions, different culture. Embrace it as it is. Do not try to change anything. Would be my the overarching recommendation. Let me elaborate a little bit on that. Like in Denmark, we are a certain way. We're very punctual. We're systematic, process-oriented. System works. There's no poverty. Not to sit there and talk about Denmark necessarily, but it's significantly different than going to Latin America, where they have 4 times as many holidays. They really praise value and enjoying life, and it's beautiful, right? So don't come with that Danish mindset. Hey, we're a startup company, or if you've been in US, we launch a company. You got to come in on Easter holiday. You can't be with your family. We got to do this. It's like Thanksgiving in US. Like you will get mass resignations across the board, right? So understanding the culture and adapting to it, all this, whatever details that you may find, okay, this is not a big deal, and so forth. You got to just embrace it and take what's good from it. And I learned this the hard way in both, not in Denmark because that's where I was from, but when operating predominantly in Latin America was the biggest culture changes. And there's countless books on this, like where you see why does McDonald's change the menu or customize the menu for different countries, or Starbucks? They adapt it, they embrace it, and then they add the flavor of the country, because that's what resonates with the culture. They want to be unique, they want to be into it, and they don't want to be set an agenda based on another company. So especially when you're coming in as a leader and a foreigner, if you come in here when you're riding your coming in horse and giving all these instructions, they're like, screw you, bro. I mean, this is our country, this is our way, you adapt to it. So the sooner you come in with that mindset, the sooner you're going to connect, integrate, and get that powerful synergy as a result of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And it's so true, because I just think of the two cultures specifically, both Denmark and Latin America. It's like totally different, taking time, holidays, so different. That's crazy. I want to ask you, I see people in leadership that micromanage, and clearly for what you have done, growing your portfolio, as many companies as you've had, that can't be in your DNA. Like, I'm guessing empowering, hiring people to really do the job and let them thrive would be more what you subscribe to. What would you say to people that are really holding on to control issues? Because I see it like, man, you're just putting a ceiling on how much growth you can have. Clearly, that's not the playbook you're operating from. What does that look like with you, man, in terms of empowering people that you bring on, creating opportunities, and really letting them thrive?
Yeah, great point. I think I made all the mistakes in the book there too, including with this project. Recently, we had a special initiative from a sales acquisition strategy and marketing. And, I'm also, throughout that journey, learned to tell people the result you want to accomplish. Don't tell them how to do it. Let them figure out, so they take ownership, and you empower them to be there to support. But for instance, that can also go wrong if they don't have the right instruction guidance, or you are basically putting the wrong people in the position. So it's a combination thing. The very first thing is make sure you got the right people in the right positions. Truly, I mean, everybody says that, right? Hire slow, fire fast, and get your A+ team. But there's really empowerment and letting people, delegating, and all that comes with having the right people in the team. So difficult, freaking fucking difficult. I mean, there's no easy shortcut. It's a rigid, hiring process, and then you can get to that. But yes, I'm a big fan of that. What happens, I've seen, is that I always have a great idea. I have great opinions, and in my opinion, I like that more than others and so forth. But you don't get people to take ownership of the project. Like there's something magical can happen when you plant the seed, somebody else takes the idea, even though you could have your ego say, this was my idea, but if you just sit back in the seat and say, hey, they take ownership for the idea, they feel a sense of pride, they deploy it, you set up the right mechanisms, you're measuring, you're controlling, you have a process, whether that's, a Gantt chart with all these different milestones, responsibilities, deadlines. If you do that as a leader, you know what's going on, and you can call for a meeting and so forth, but you delegate that full responsibility, that you are the owner of this. You own this metric, you own this project, you own this KPI, whatever it may be. Magic can come from that, because that's where people really step up and grow. And yes, I would say there's different stages of the company. We all know that first startup grind stage, that's, the failure rate is, astronomical. At that point, you got to be a little bit hands-on as a manager. More importantly, the worst thing you can do is just hire people and tell them to figure it out. In the beginning, you got to be involved in everything. Ideally, I tell most of the entrepreneurs and companies I've invested in and stuff like that is like, for instance, like important things like sales and marketing, you got to be all in on that. You got to be a chief sales officer yourself. You're selling your company, your vision. You're selling the opportunity to employees, for partners to partner with you, to clients to try your products. You got to be out there. If you as a founder can't pitch your company and your product, your vision and everything, then you're doomed. So those kind of cases, I recommend you go in and do it, or get support to do it. And then you document everything. And then when you have the best practice and you have a benchmark, a baseline for where it should be, then you bring on people and say, listen, here's the goal. I want you to do it better. Here's a guideline. Here's some expectations. But I know with your full dedication to it, you can do better. I did this, combining these other things. And that way you give people, a head start. They don't have to go out and experiment. You have not jeopardized your own investment and risky in terms of just delegating and hoping that it works out. You're more in control. But once you get over that startup phase, that's where SOPs and process and documentation and training and systems, that's becomes key. That's become key to scale, hiring the right people and empowering them.
How have you come across and really recognized your opportunities? Because again, when I talk to people that, like you said in the bio, a serial entrepreneur, well, to me, that means you've recognized opportunities in different areas where often people will just shy away. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to go into that. That doesn't seem to be your approach. It's like you go in, it seems like you're pretty open and saying, look, I think I can bring value. But what does that look like for you? Do you have a process of really vetting these opportunities, or is it, hey man, I'm interested in this, I'm going to go all in? What does that look like for you?
Yes. Again, I learned this the hard way. So when I sold the shares in my last big agency, I had a little bit of pocket change. I actually wanted to be more of an angel investor and kind of like these offices that we're sitting. I have a few offices in this building that I bought and renovated, created them like really cool. I wanted to create like an accelerator. So I would say, hey, startup, my name is Gary. I'm a mentor. I can help you with sales and marketing. We have this in-house team. We have the legal framework. We have a little bit of capital we can invest into you. And at the same time, I created this platform that I'm not focusing on really a lot, but it's called acceleratorplatform.io, where you basically had like 150 manuals or steps, like SOPs for everything. When you're starting a company, you got to do this marketing research. You got to create a three-year budget. But it's just the same. What you do, there was templates for everything that I collected and gathered from my own experiences and from other, where I say, okay, if I invest in the company, they can follow this blueprint to make sure that we increase the probability of becoming successful. And it's a very common thing for venture capitalists and PE, to have kind of like an accelerator or have a platform, so that at least, these young entrepreneurs that are just all over the picture with little experience, at least they follow a proven framework. So when I came here, long story short, to Colombia, I created an investment fund called Great Ventures. I got some people to throw money into it. I took my own money into it. And the plan was that we're going to find tech companies. I was going to invest and apply that, and then skyrocket. I started to interview about 100+ companies got pitched me, right? And I learned there that there was a lot of gaps and a lot of business plans. And first and foremost, probably 50% of them didn't even have a business plan or a budget, or they hadn't done research, or they haven't proven the concept. So to me, I was like, shit, this is too big of a risk. So as an investor, it's incredibly hard to go in and say, okay, I trust this guy and they're doing everything like I would do it, right? So it's like, whoa, it's difficult. And I afterwards learned that from some buddies that I had that kind of run a similar business in that sense and invest in a couple of companies every year that they help them grow. They say that, you got to choose one out of 200 pitches, basically. I was like, shit, I just can't do that. And also I just found that, maybe I'm not the right kind of profile to amplify, because I like to be all in. I like to be in the hustle, whereas an investor, you got to step a little bit behind the curtain. And I like to be involved in the projects I'm working with, because I see something and say that we could do that better. It's kind of hard for me to bite my tongue and let it figure it out. So I look at all those things. And the point is that I would recommend anybody who's an entrepreneur that hasn't taken off, or anybody who's looking to invest, to take that leap from employment to starting their own company. Get some mentorship, right? Get some mentorship, acquire a program. Do not try to shorten the learning curve. I mean, as much as humanly possible. Otherwise, you're going to burn through money, and the odds are you're up against the wall. Just standing on the shoulders of giants, doing things that have done by others, doing proven frameworks. It's going to take you a long way, and that's something I would look for in people who say, okay, are they open to my feedback, input? Do they have a direction? Can they be coached in that sense? Because if they're not willing to that, I don't care how good the idea is. I don't care, what great opportunities. I'll say no, because it's never gonna go right. But if they're open to all those different factors, there's a high probability of success. Unfortunately, it's been difficult for me to find a lot of those.
It is pretty. You mentioned coaching throughout. That's clearly been a big influence on you and your careers, having coaches, having mentors. You mentioned Tony Robbins and going through these programs. It sounds like that's just a part of your DNA, brother. Like, I am doing self-development. I haven't arrived now. What does that look like for you today, man? Are you still grinding on books, still going to masterminds? What does that look like for you now, Gary?
Yeah, I participated in a few masterminds just for networking purposes, and there's always some value to extract. I've always been a fan of that before it was even called masterminds. I would say, like, my old project where it was like there was 20 something Google Premium partners. We all got together. We all competitors, but let's share some. What's this metrics? What's that? How can we? That it helps a lot. Coaching is still involved in it. I tried a lot of different programs. I think it's just about and sometimes you feel like, shit, I could just read the book myself. I could do this. I know that, but the value of just somebody that you're accountable to, right? The value of somebody calling you out, the value of you paying for something that you got to check in on, the value of sometimes, the expression, you can't see the forest for bare trees. It's just all those little details combined. It's like a no-brainer. So I've always been a fan of it. And participated in most programs, and I still get coaching myself. I used to do a little bit coaching and consulting. I just haven't had time for others, and I did it more of a sheer interest that I love to. I just love to success and have victory. So if you can help somebody, it's a great, pride. It feels great. Like it's like you mentioned Tony Robbins, right? It's like we have these 6 human needs, right? Certainty, uncertainty, significance, love, connection. But the big one movers is like growing and then giving, right? So you combine those 2 fuckers together, that fuels something in me, at least, and most other people. So I highly endorse coach myself and coach others for that matter.
Yeah, man. Clearly you're helping people along the way as an angel investor, as a coach. You've provided opportunities. That has been a theme throughout. I want to give you just open forum here, Gary. Anything I didn't know enough to ask you where you're like, JM, we got to share this with your audience before we wrap up. Anything I didn't know enough to ask you, brother? Just your moment to whatever you want to rip on.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot of ground here. Appreciate all the great questions. It's not your first rodeo, I can definitely tell. But I would like to maybe just take the opportunity to say thank you, and to everybody who's tuned in. I listened to a few of your episodes and know of your profile. I have a good sense of your audience. If it's entrepreneur, if it's high performance, it's basically people that are looking to take it to the next level. If I can help in any way in terms of like the 2 products that I released this year that I'm very proud of, if you're looking to scale your business, grow sales, is a proven sales blueprint endorsed by the top executives at Google and Microsoft, Amazon, other big companies that are very blessed and privileged to work with. It's basically a 400-page playbook from A to C on where to go from 0 to 100 million. And this goals grid and greatness planner, I basically created to not lose my own mind and basically help myself, help the employees. We use it to hand out to employees. We a lot of the addiction treatment, mental health clinics that we work with actually give it to their patients as well as kind of like a discharge plan. That's kind of why I developed for all those reasons, so that, you know, if you had stuck in any place in your life, not if you're just a goal seeker, you're crushing it, and you just, it's also just like the simple stuff about fulfillment. So in the plan of it, I have, you know, list 3 things you're grateful for every day, right? So that you take you pause, right? It's not about living out of lack of chasing things, but, you know, living out a place of gratitude and enjoying that, then going to the next phase. And then rituals, it's about goal setting, it's about reflection and all those things. So I think it's a good tool for anybody who's aiming to improve their life or feel just unfulfilled at that point. So I would like to encourage both products. You can go to my website, elevate.io, pick it up. It's also on Amazon, or my personal website, GaryGarth.com. But elevate.io is there, and love to get any feedback from anybody that finds it helpful.
Well, brother, that's awesome that you put that out there, and thank you again for sending it my way. You guys go check it out. Go to Gary's website. I mean, this guy is full of a bunch of knowledge. He's clearly been there. He's succeeded all the way through and failed, and yet is still smiling, determined to keep going on. Gary, man, I just appreciate you showing up so authentically and just being here, man. You're awesome.
Likewise. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to have me back, I'm ready.
Brother, that'd be great, man. I have a bunch more questions, but I can't believe how fast this went. You guys go check it out. Go check out his website. Go grab the book. I mean, again, 6 exited companies. He's working on a whole ecosystem of other companies, helping people with opportunities, making an impact. Who doesn't want to follow that? Share this with someone you know, whether they're living in the States, South America, Denmark, it doesn't matter, man. This guy's all over. He is truly a Renaissance man. Share this with somebody. It's a fascinating conversation. And until next time, remember, guys, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.